Good morning, Southwest Illinois. This is George Goodman hosting Just Listen, hosted live. I am your resource for local politics in the area, and I pledge to keep you in the know and to be brief. All right, so let me pull this up and we'll see where we're at this morning. All right, so it's a great day. It's a little cooler than I thought, but the sun's out, so let's get to it. We are starting to get into the thick of things with the campaigns for state election, governor. We're talking about attorney general. That one didn't get much press. And also, we're talking about the U.S. Senate. Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, let's talk about what the candidates are saying this week of April 20th. So they're talking about the Republicans are talking about emphasizing rising gas prices, high property taxes. On the Senate side for the Democrats, they are countering with Ms. Stratton saying focus on Medicare for all and raising the minimum wage. Okay. Now, don't know what the Republican is saying on the Senate side. That was on the governor's side. The Republican was the one that was talking about rising gas prices and high property taxes. I don't know if you guys notice or not, but this time around, uh, candidate Darren Bailey is actually he got an apartment in Chicago and he is campaigning there exclusively, according to his website, and also he put out a press feed about it. So that's what we have. All right. Public safety. The GOP candidates for governor and Senate identify crime and safety as their top tier voter concerns. All right. So you've heard that before from the Republicans. They wanted to get rid of the cashless bail. So that's in line with what they've been saying. All right. So, national influence. What are the candidates talking about that are from Illinois? Their relationship with national figures. So, candidate Darren Bailey, the Republican, says that he wants to distance himself from President Donald Trump to appeal to a broader electorate, and the Democratic candidates are highlighting their records of standing up to Trump's policies on tariffs and immigration. During the primary on the Democratic side, that was in fact what they talked about, and that's what they were highlighting. And candidate Stratton is the Democratic nominee, and she's still talking about it. So, just in case you didn't know, the Republican running for attorney general is a guy named Bob Fioretti. It's Fioretti. I would encourage you to go out to his website and see what he stands for, etc. Attorney general is a very important spot. And if you could put a Republican in that, they could um, possibly keep the legislature in check by challenging some of the laws that they come up with, and also the governor as well. So there might be an opportunity. So go out to his website and see what he is about. The incumbent, the Democrat, is Kwame Raoul, and he's been in office since Pritzker, so he's got a record. Go out and see what he's done. All right. And on the Secretary of State, the Republican candidate is Diane Harris. Go out to her website as well. The incumbent is the Democrat, Alexei Giannoulis. I probably butchered his name, sorry. So those are your candidates for the statewide election. All right. So let's talk about the what the Illinois legislature is doing. So they're actually in their spring session. I've been talking about them. So they're shifting focus from passing bills in their original chambers to advancing them through the opposite chamber, meaning the Senate. And the House is scheduled to return to session April 21st. So that is tomorrow. All right. Following a brief break from the 17th. Okay. So they are transitioning. They've got these bills out of committee and they've passed them in the Illinois House. Friday, I'll look at what they passed and let you know because in Southern Illinois, no one tells us anything. All right. So, key legislative discussions in the Illinois House. They're debating with heavy emphasis on addressing a projected 2.2 billion deficit while maintaining affordability for residents. Okay. I've been talking about that and I've set the table for what I think that they will do. All right. So here's what they're talking about. Affordability and tax reform. Both parties are debating measures to ease financial strain on constituents. Democrats are focusing on targeting large corporations to get them to pay more in revenue, while Republicans are advocating for holistic tax reform, including eliminating taxes on tips and overtime pay. So that was in the big, beautiful bill federally. And statewide, you're still getting taxed on apparently tips and overtime pay in Illinois, in case you didn't know that. So, and these are things that they're talking about. There's no bills out there except that um, the Democrats are actually targeting large corporations with legislation. So, in the Big Beautiful Bill, corporations got a corporate tax break. And what the state of Illinois is actually trying to do is to get them to pay more state corporate taxes. So, that's what that's about. Education policies. All right. So there is a proposed cell phone ban in schools. And I believe that this will pass in Illinois, and it will be the only thing in the last several years that's been bipartisan. So the amended version of Senate Bill 2427, which requires schools to adopt restrictive device policies, is moving through the House after receiving support from Governor Pritzker. So that I think is going to happen. The specifics of it, I've told you before to what it highlighted. Healthcare transparency and access. Discussions continue on the Healthcare Transparency Act, which would require hospitals to disclose non-medical reasons for denying certain services and proposals to regulate prescription drugs through a new oversight board. So that would be good, but it's still just discussions. It's not a bill yet. All right, public safety and consumer rights. Lawmakers are considering the RIFL Act to license firearm manufacturers and the Illinois Data Privacy and Protection Act to regulate how business handle personal information. All right, so they're just talking about that. More details to follow in the future. Housing and homelessness. Advocates are pushing for bills like Housing Bill 1429, which would prohibit criminalizing survival activities for those experiencing homelessness, and the Tenant Fees Limitation Act to eliminate junk fees and rental agreements. So, um, I am going to find out what they mean by prohibit criminalizing survival activities for those experience homelessness. I'm not sure what that means. So, and I will get back to you on that. All right. So, important deadlines. So, on April 17th for the legislature, the final deadline for passing substantive bills out of their chamber, which they did. May 8th is the deadline for bills to pass out of committee in the opposite chamber. And then May 31st, the scheduled adjournment for the spring session. So that is what's happening in the legislature. And like I talked overall, and Friday, I'll bring it up again. Republicans generally view the state's current tax policies as overly burdensome. So I'll go into more detail about that. So, the last 2 minutes, I want to encourage you again, and I'll keep saying this at the end of my podcast. Go out and look at what the candidates are standing for. Currently, there's not a lot of advertisement. It doesn't seem like that there's a lot of interest so far. Probably July, August, September, the rhetoric will come up. Um, I think that on the Republican side, especially, candidates need to get their name out there. And I'm hoping that the Republican Party of Illinois will give folks some money so that they can get some visibility. Please subscribe to the Just Listen hosted by George podcast. And also, I put out a weekly U.S. government policy. This week, I was talking about the ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, and I put in some details about the Strait of Hormuz that you probably have never heard. So give me feedback. And guess what, guys? That's it for a Monday, April 20th. So I'll be back on Friday. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the weather since it is getting a little bit warmer. And also put out a influencer, influence people to talk about domestic abuse. I think that this is very important, and I'm hoping that this one will go viral. So, see you on Friday. Have a good week. Talk to you then.